gonna have a Kickturn party tonight.
Welcome back to Kickturn Party.
We got another episode for you. We're going to do a little bit more early 80s stuff. We've got some killer early 80s boards, and we've got a couple of old magazines. We're going to take a little bit closer look at what was going on during the early 80s, during the death of skateboarding, because at that time it was pretty dead. I know here in Tennessee we didn't even have a skate shop. I don't think there was a skate shop in the entire state at that point.
No, not that I know.
You know, from like 81 to 83. There wasn't anything here. Let's see what we were having to order online. We were getting our stuff through Eastern Skateboard Supply. This is
online. You mean mail order?
Mail order. That's right.
There was no online.
Yeah, it's because I'm a millennial and I don't know when there was a such thing as mail order. So this was a board. I'm gonna bring this one out. This is a rare gem, Kryptonics foam core with a rubber bumper all the way around it.
Foam,
P-Tex on the bottom.
fiberglass, 10.75.
Yeah. Fiberglass on top, fiberglass on the bottom with P-Tex, and in between was foam core, and actually there's some wood in here, a wood stringer.
band.
I just abused this thing so much. You can see the rubber's beginning to fall off of it.
Killing me.
This was a very rare board.
What do you got on here? You got some. These are
Goings.
Super Pro 3s, but these are newer than this board.
Yeah,
this isn't
very
what
much.
you rode on it.
Those weren't what I rode on, but I do believe I rode some Gold Wings on it, and I really liked them.
They're old. They're bones.
Yeah, old bones. But this is the board that I was riding in that Huntsville getaway skate park video we were showing a little bit earlier.
Cool. So how long did you ride this thing? Looks like you had rails on it.
I rode it until I broke it, essentially. If you look at the top of it, you can see all these stress cracks here because
it's almost convex.
Yeah, this center beam is wood, and underneath this is foam, so it started like falling apart every time I'd land on it.
Good mileage out of this thing, man.
But this was one of the most expensive boards on the market.
I was going to say, yeah, probably
at that time.
$100.
This is
about $100.
That would be what today's equivalent of the flight deck.
So this is kind of nice. This was high tech as we were leaving the 80s. Leaving the 70s rather, going into the 80s.
Well, you talked about there not being any skate shops in town.
Correct.
So sometimes if you were in a pinch and you needed a new board, you might take an old board and customize it. So I had this Gator here that I customized into
Gator.
a Powell.
That's a Powell Pro.
Turn it into a Powell.
Gator.
No, you look closely at the shape and you can tell it's a mid-80s Gator.
And I turned it into the Jason Oaks butt face board. It's got scratch and sniff paint on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you get that from John Waters when he was doing the scratch and sniff stuff?
Absolutely. But yeah, this was a Gator. I sanded it down and customized it. So
that's totally awesome.
You had to do what you had to do.
You hate
It was DIY. It was punk rock.
And it's still.
And it was the only way you were going to get a pro model.
Exactly. And here he is
Believe
now.
me, I made one too.
You sold what, thousands of those, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of that whole same DIY ethic, this is another board. Same thing. This really is a Powell board. And this is a Mike McGill board that Ray Underhill rode.
This is the first model that he has with the old jet.
Correct. So
81, 82?
So Ray got this from Mike. And he rode it for a while, and then the whole street skating thing started kind of blowing up a little bit in like 81, 82. Like we were looking at the slappy stuff.
As we discussed earlier, to ride the street, for some reason, you had to have a smaller board.
So you can see right here that this is a much smaller board. Actually, the nose has been cut off. You can see where the trucks have been drilled back from a vert board. So this thing is actually much, much smaller. This is like, what, 29? So this is a board that Mike McGill gave to Ray Underhill. Ray Underhill rode it for a while, and then Mike McGill came to our the Kokomo ramp, and he came and signed this board. Ray was riding, he signed the board, and then Ray wound up giving it to me later. Actually, Mike McGill's autograph is actually down here. You can't see it really. So I took it to Kona, met Mike again, and got Mike to sign it.
And
So this is twice signed by
actually,
Mike.
that wasn't
was
Coney,
that-
that Atlanta demo that we went to.
Oh, actually it was the Atlanta
And
demo.
you kind of blew his mind, and we got some good pictures of that because you whipped that out. And the cover with you on the cover, and Mike McGill is one of the squares that's on with the cover of Thunder.
Correct.
And he was like, "Man, I haven't even seen this episode or issue in a long time."
Right.
And it kind of blew Mike's mind, and he was real cool about it and signed it again.
Yeah, I signed it again. So this has been not only screened with his signature on it, but he signed it once in like 1980 and then once again a couple of 3 years ago. So this board has been around. People were taking their old boards, cutting them down, putting their own graphics on them, doing whatever you needed to do. That was a very cool thing. You know, I mean, it was all DIY, like you were saying. I know that kids are still doing it. I think there's a big DIY thing going on with the concrete world now. I think that's totally awesome. I don't think there's so much that with boards anymore because boards became so popsicle stick generic. This is probably one of my favorite boards I've ever ridden in my entire life. This was one of the very first boards that was actually shaped like a fish. And you can see from my artistic, graphic design grip tape that this actually has got grip tape fish. See, here's the eye and the little mouth.
Oh.
See how neat is that? How neat? I knew that would get a rise out of our producer. But
looks like you broke that one too, Joe.
actually I did, and I'm so bummed that I did break this board.
There's actually, if any of you guys out there in YouTube land watch the 9 Club in the Hosoi episode, he talks about this very model.
Yeah. This is when he came from Sam's first one after
And he
Sam.
was like, "Tony Alva wants to give me a model? Okay."
And this was an awesome board. This, like I said, it was one of my favorite boards. I think I did my highest error ever on this board, which was like 4.5 feet or something, which is like, tiny compared to today's standards. But for me, it was like a huge deal. Then I went up skating the unfair and doing boneless ones off that launch ramp and just snapped the thing right
Snapped
now.
it.
It was a great vert board though. Very good. Another thing you don't see a lot of these days, snub nose. Look at how tiny that nose is. And another thing about these boards that most of these kids don't know these days, how flat these things are. This one's actually got a lot of concave for the time.
It does?
Yes.
And it's also got
Wheel
wheel
wells.
cut wheel wells.
And
Wheel-
Now compare that concave to this concave.
There's no concave
There
there.
is no concave.
Pancake there.
Yeah. So
Pancake. Pancake.
and believe me, when Powell came out with this board, we were like, it's got a little bit of concave. It's not too bad. Before this, we were talking about this earlier. Veriflex had the best concave.
Had the
Early 1980s.
They had an elliptical concave that was absolutely awesome, and then it went kind of
Back when
downhill from there.
Veriflex, before they became a Kmart brand.
But on
tell them
what?
why the table's shaped like that.
Oh,
I don't know.
it was for tail blocks.
Tail
Yeah.
blocks.
Ah,
in the
that's-
coping.
that's
Yeah,
That's why-
it's
that's why Hosoi designed
yeah,
it.
that's why exactly
I
why
didn't know
he
that.
talks about it.
Yeah.
I didn't
Props
know
to the
that.
9 Club.
Yeah.
See,
That's it right there.
Stick it right in there.
Yep.
Perfect.
And that way it wouldn't slide off.
Yeah.
Excellent. You guys are rock, man. I didn't know that. After the 70s, the 80s, the skate parks died. There was nothing going on. This kind of inventiveness, this renaissance of board shapes. They
Right.
started making different board shapes, and
It was the way to stand out.
It
Crazy
was-
graphics and board shapes.
That's
I mean,
exactly right.
the Kryptonic doesn't have a shape.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It was pretty much a pig.
Pig,
Everything
yeah.
was everything. Just like today, we've got just total
Popsicles.
popsicle sticks.
Mhm.
Back then, it was kind of a generic shaped pig. It looked like a big
Well,
surfboard.
skateboards are finally coming back
Yeah.
around, and now they still have great concave, big tail, or little tails and big spoon noses, but they're shaped.
And I think this was one of the first real shapy boards.
that I can ever remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that really had a whole lot going on there.
Well, there was the Uncle Wiggly fish stick.
yeah, well, that was a pretty generic shape too, but they had
They
the
had
different
had the
laminate.
fish tail.
Yeah, different laminate stuff going on. This is one of those kind of things that, once again, Alva was kind of an innovator. He knew what was going on, and
Hell, Christian was an innovator. He's the one that wanted
Yeah.
it.
Well-
Alva just let him do it.
yeah, well, this evolved into the Hammerhead,
Yeah.
Right.
which we'll have on another episode, and we'll talk about the Krypt0 Hammerhead and what was going on with that. And
Anybody got a hammerhead? An old hammerhead?
I've
Got
got-
one? I got
he's
a
got
reissue.
everything.
I mean, I got a reissue.
I rode. Well, I rode several of them back in the day, but now I have a reissue. But sit back
Well,
down.
you know,
Just sit back down.
it's just because he's a reenactor. He had to buy it because he just wants to hang out. And then we're going to have a whole nother episode on what reenactors are. That's a whole different episode, kids. We'll talk about that at some other point. So,
we are progressing through the years.
yes, we are moving
may
through the
get
years.
there.
Well, so
Eventually.
so
at
maybe
this point-
next
at this
episode
point, yeah.
we'll do late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, at this point, if you want to be a reenactor, you'd have to be standing around with Logan Ersky and like basketball knee pads. We'll talk about
Soccer.
Volleyball knee pads.
Yeah.
Hey, my
Exactly.
first pair of pads were
Exactly.
pony volleyball knee pads
Heck
that I
yeah.
bought at the Athletic House.
I
My first pair of knee
I
pads.
think I had some. I think they were called basketball pads at the time when I started.
Okay, it may have been.
Thanks for stopping by Kickturn Party.
Thanks for coming by.
Give us a like down there. Let us know what you think. Give us a comment. Send us an email.
And we'll be back, and you don't have to watch us, but that's okay. We'll be back.
Yay, Internet!
Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight. Alright. We'll pass out in the flat. Alright. Tonight. We got nothing better to do than to take 6 runs, drink a dozen